Hello again. Welcome to part 6 of our Technology Management lecture series. My name is Dennis Donovan, and I will be discussing various topics within leadership. Let's begin this journey, shall we? As you can see, here are the expected learning outcomes. Please ponder them as you view this lecture. Some of you may relate leadership to a historical figure based on portrayed qualities or actions. The first iconic figure that pops in my mind is Yoda. I mean George Washington. Without going into a history lesson, he could be considered a great leader in American history. I am sure if you thought about it, other great people would come to mind. So what is leadership anyways? If you type this question into a Google search, you're bound to get various definitions and perceptions from different sources. I particularly like how Northouse defines it. Leadership is an influence process that assists groups of individuals towards goal attainment. Like any process, it can be learned. So, if we can understand some characteristics of a leader, maybe we can become one. The idea of identifying traits portrayed in leaders so that we can work on emulating them is a fascinating idea. For instance, I may say that George Washington displayed courage, was ambitious, and bold. These are all favorable traits in which I may be able to obtain. Wait a minute. Being ambitious does not guarantee that I will be a good leader. Is this a flaw in the theory? In fact, while these may be good traits, all leaders do not possess them. Comparing leaders illustrates this point. George Washington's was reserved and measured, while John Adams was a greater intellect and abrasive. They were both good leaders. You get the picture. Traits alone do not make the leader. There is actually hope for me yet. Well, if we can't become a leader through traits, surely we can identify some key skills, right? What if George Washington was considered a competent problem solver, or attributed to having a great deal of motivation? Well, that would explain how he created solutions to the various problems he faced. With this information, I can now work on improving my capabilities in some of these areas, and then I will become a great leader, right? Well, not quite. The same attributes could be considered traits. Even though I can improve on a particular skill, the improvement will not make me an instant model of leadership. The model never explains how the skills lead to effective leadership, even though there is a correlation. This can be considered a major flaw in the model. Possessing a particular skill does not make you a leader. In order for the behavioral approach to work, the leader must understand their employee to figure out which behavior style to use. In some cases, there may be a need to use authority to get the task done with little regard for the individual. We've all been there. On the other side of the spectrum, the leader can make it feel like a country club by engaging the employee to ensure their social needs are met without much demand. The leader must be willing to determine their appropriate behavior style and realize with each project the style may need fine-tuning. However, as stated by Northouse on page 81, similar to trait approach, the behavioral approach has been unable to identify the universal behaviors that are associated with effective leadership. Well, as you may have guessed, there is no magic bullet to creating an effective leader. A single trait, skill, or behavior is not considered more important than the other. Even with correlations of certain aspects in great leaders, it has not been proven as the one item that creates an effective leader. Because every situation, whether it be at home or in the office, is different from the other, the leader must constantly listen. Ah, remember from the communications module last week? By listening, they can match their style with the individual or group so they can motivate them and achieve the task. In some cases, they may call for servant leadership style, one of my personal favorites, where it places the follower's needs first, which emphasizes honesty and trust. Maybe with a highly motivated team, the leader can take a laissez-faire style approach. Wow, try saying that 2 times in a row. That's French for allowed to do. At this point, we understand how important it is to know the employee in order to lead them. You can't give into your bias and just assume the person is lazy. Remember, the most challenging aspect is to motivate the individual or group to perform the task. As stated by Judge on page 106, surveys state 69% of workers report wasting time every day. Just imagine what could be accomplished with that time. Maslow's hierarchy of needs state that every person has 5 needs. The basic needs such as food and shelter, safety, with personal security, social, sense of belonging, esteem, recognition, and self-actualization or self-fulfillment. The idea is that once each level is satisfied, the next one is craved. So if social needs are met at work, then the leader must recognize that the employee is craving recognition. This will motivate the individual to do the work. The expectancy theory is another one, but focuses on outcomes instead of needs. The idea is the person will behave a certain way depending on the perceived outcome. As an example, you may perform at a high level at work because it is perceived it will lead to a desired outcome. Job satisfaction. If your employee is not motivated as a result of being bored, the leader should take action. Maybe his needs are not being met, resulting in an unsatisfied worker. There are several ways to reduce boredom at work. Job rotation is something that comes to mind. What I am particularly fond of is getting the employees involved. It builds a trusting relationship, giving them a sense of control. And remember, they are the experts on the front lines. The best ideas for innovative process improvement, saving the company money. All improvements are not always welcomed by the people within the organization. As an example, I was a production support engineer. We automated the high-pot test, that stands for high potential, and is needed for electrical safety of a product. It was met with resistance, since it made some people fear that they would lose their job to a machine. In hindsight, I could have gotten them involved from the very beginning, either by educating them about the reasons to move to an automated machine. Cheaper, faster, you get the point. Maybe even having them sit in on meetings, participating in the effort. Imagine the possibilities if adaptation became the norm. Embrace the culture. Well, that wraps it up. But I invite you to review the following questions. It may help to reinforce the learning outcomes for this lecture. And it is okay to go back and review the topics contained in the video before answering the questions. I encourage you to view the supplemental material outlined in this lecture. If you find a particular subject exciting, feel free to do some more research on your own. Thank you. This concludes our lecture series on technology management. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have.